They kneed the new girl in the face, big mistake. Because what they didn't know was that she wasn't just another quiet transfer student. She'd survived worse battles. The kind that didn't leave bruises on the skin but on the soul. And this time she wasn't running anymore. The cafeteria went silent. It happened so fast no one even processed it. A flash of movement. The thud of a knee against flesh and the sound of a tray clattering to the floor. Reese Morgan didn't fall. She just stood there, eyes steady, one hand wiping blood from her lip. The girl who'd hit her, Brooke Santos, froze for half a second like she hadn't expected the hit to actually land. Then laughter, from Blair Pierce's table. A sharp echoing sound that filled the air like glass breaking. Reese's voice was quiet, almost calm. "You shouldn't have done that." Her tone wasn't angry. It was something colder. Something that made even Blair's laughter fade. Teachers rushed in, pulling them apart, the usual chaos of punishment and denial. Brooke claimed it was an accident. Blair smiled sweetly and said she hadn't seen anything. Reese just sat in the nurse's office afterward, silent, pressing a cold pack to her cheek. Outside, rain fell against the window, slow and rhythmic. The nurse kept asking if she wanted to call her mom. Reese said no, because Sarah Morgan wasn't just a mom, she was a detective. And Reese had learned the hard way that calling her would only turn small fires into headlines. When she finally walked home that afternoon, backpack heavy and face throbbing, she whispered to herself, "They think I'm the new girl. They have no clue who I really am." Reese Morgan was used to being invisible. She'd switched schools 5 times in 3 years. Each move a new start, a new set of hallways, lockers, names, and lies she never bothered correcting. Her mother said it was for safety. Reese knew it was for peace. After her father's case and a whistleblower in the department, everything fell apart. The threats, the surveillance, the night they found their dog poisoned in the yard. That's when Sarah had packed their lives into 2 suitcases and disappeared into new identities. Millbrook wasn't supposed to be different. Just another quiet place to blend in, finish senior year, graduate, and move on. But from the first day at Ashford Prep, the world decided otherwise. It started with whispers. Scholarship kid, cop's daughter, trouble. Then came the online rumors, the fake screenshots, the staged photos. Blair Pierce had a way of controlling stories before anyone even checked the facts, and she'd chosen Reese as her next project. Reese didn't fight back, not at first. She studied her enemies, how they moved, who they talked to, when they lied. She noticed how Rachel, Blair's shadow, recorded everything but never posted it. How Brooke always waited for Blair's nod before speaking. How fear was their glue, fear of being the next target. At night, Reese replayed every moment on her body cam, cataloging evidence like her mother once taught her. Her desk was lined with notes, screenshots, patterns, because she knew something they didn't. Bullies leave digital fingerprints, and every fingerprint could become a weapon. That night, she looked in the mirror, touched the bruise on her lip, and whispered, "I don't need to fight them. I just need to make them show who they really are." 2 weeks later, the game began. Reese walked into school early, when hallways still smelled like disinfectant, and the air carried the hush of morning. She placed a small flash drive inside her locker, taped to the underside of the shelf. It wasn't evidence, not yet. It was bait. By noon, the rumors had spread like wildfire. Someone had hacked Blair's phone. Someone had footage of her saying things that could ruin her family's reputation. None of it was true, but Blair didn't know that. Reese had planted the story carefully through whispers and anonymous posts. At lunch, Blair stormed across the cafeteria, rage painted across her perfect face. "You think you can play me, Morgan?" she hissed, grabbing Reese's wrist. Reese just looked at her, eyes calm. "Why would I need to?" "You do that on your own." Phones came out. Cameras rolled. Blair's hand tightened, nails digging into Reese's skin. "Delete whatever you took." "I didn't take anything," Reese said softly. "You just told everyone you have something to hide." A ripple went through the crowd. Blair froze. That was the first time the power shifted, just slightly, but enough for people to notice. Later, in the empty girls' bathroom, Rachel confronted her. "Why are you doing this?" "You'll ruin everything." Reese met her eyes through the mirror. "Everything that deserves to be ruined." Rachel hesitated for the first time and left without another word. Reese turned off the body camera, placed it on the sink, and exhaled. "Mom," she whispered under her breath. "You were right. Sometimes justice needs witnesses." Blair didn't sleep that week. The whispers wouldn't stop, the glances in the hall, the way even her friends had started avoiding her. For the first time in her life, she was the one being watched. Her paranoia grew. She demanded Rachel delete everything from her phone. She forced Brooke to tail Reese after school. She even bribed a teacher to lose Reese's project grade. But nothing worked because Reese didn't react. She just kept walking, quiet and steady, like someone who already knew how the story ended. One Thursday afternoon, as storm clouds gathered outside, Blair cornered Reese in the art room. "No cameras this time," Blair sneered. Checking the corners, Reese looked up from her sketchbook. "You sure about that?" Blair froze. The sound of thunder echoed as Reese stood, closing the book. "You think power comes from followers, from fear, but real power," she paused, stepping closer, "comes from truth, and yours is about to go public." Blair lunged forward, but the door opened behind her. Rachel stood there, phone in hand and live streaming. "People deserve to see who you really are," she said, voice trembling. Blair's face drained of color. "You're recording?" Rachel's eyes flicked toward Reese, who simply nodded once. That video went viral before the final bell rang. By evening, Blair Pierce Exposed was trending across 3 states. The world watched the queen of Ashford Prep unravel, and for the first time in years, Reese Morgan allowed herself to smile. Not because she'd won, but because she finally felt seen. By Monday, the school wasn't the same. Blair's empire had cracked overnight. Teachers whispered in hallways. Parents called the principal's office demanding answers. Rachel's video showed it all. Blair threatening, mocking, and shoving the girl she'd claimed was lying. Reese didn't gloat. She didn't even check the comments. Instead, she walked into school like it was any other day, her hood up, her expression unreadable. But inside, her stomach twisted. Justice wasn't supposed to feel like this, hollow and quiet. People who had ignored her now stared as she passed. Some whispered, "Good job." Others just looked away, afraid to be next. Brooke transferred schools by the end of the week. Rachel deleted her accounts. Blair stopped coming altogether. In English class, the teacher asked them to write about courage. Reese wrote one line, "Courage isn't loud. It's the choice to keep standing when silence is safer." Her mom found the essay later that night and read it without a word, just a hand on Reese's shoulder, soft and steady. "You did what you had to," she whispered. Reese looked out the window at the dark street below. Somewhere out there, Blair was still spinning stories, maybe planning her next move, but it didn't matter anymore. Because Reese wasn't scared now. Not of bullies, not of silence, not of being alone, but things weren't over. The school board launched an internal review. Reporters circled. And Blair's family, with all their power and money, started to push back. One evening, Sarah Morgan came home, uniform still on, exhaustion written across her face. She dropped a folder on the kitchen table. Inside were legal letters, threats of defamation, demands for silence. "They're calling it slander," Sarah said quietly. "They're coming after you, Ree." Reese sat still, the air thick between them. "So I tell the truth and I get punished for it?" Her mom's eyes softened. "That's how it works sometimes. But that's why you gather evidence." She pointed to the folder of Reese's notes, files, and recordings, the proof she'd collected from day one. "That's your shield." Reese opened her laptop. Her finger hovered over a folder labeled Ashford Prep Case. Inside were dozens of clips, timestamps, emails, screenshots, even copies of school messages showing how they ignored her complaints. "Then we fight," she said. That night, mother and daughter sat side by side, crafting something powerful. A timeline. A statement. A truth too detailed to bury. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, a detective and her daughter became a team. Reese didn't sleep. She kept replaying one question in her mind. Was it worth it? By morning, she already knew her answer. If I stay silent, I become part of their story. But if I speak, I write my own. The meeting room was cold, too bright, and filled with polished faces pretending to care. At the head table sat Principal Vance, Ms. Ortiz from the Title IX office, 2 lawyers, and Blair's father, a man who looked like he'd never been told no. Reese stood beside her mother, holding the same folder she'd started weeks ago. "Ms. Morgan," one of the board members began. "You've accused several students of harassment and defamation. Are you aware of the seriousness of these claims?" Reese didn't flinch. "Yes, that's why I brought proof." She slid a flash drive across the table. The projector flickered to life. Clip after clip appeared. The cafeteria fight, the threats, the mocking videos, even staff emails dismissing her concerns. Every second was time-stamped. Every name visible, the room went silent. Blair's father shifted, jaw tight. Principal Vance cleared his throat, his face pale. When the lights came back on, Ms. Ortiz spoke first. "This isn't just bullying," she said. "This is institutional negligence." For the first time, Sarah Morgan smiled. Just slightly. Outside the glass walls, students gathered in the hallway, phones in hand, whispering. The story was already spreading again, only this time it wasn't about gossip. It was about truth. Reese stepped out of the boardroom into sunlight for the first time in what felt like months. She looked at her mother and said, "You always said the truth wins in the end." I think I finally believe that. The next morning, Blair showed up. Her eyes were red, makeup smeared, phone gone. No followers, no entourage, no mask. Just a girl standing in front of the school steps, trembling in the wind. When Reese walked by, Blair called out, "Wait." Reese stopped, turned. Blair's voice cracked. "You ruined my life." Reese stared at her for a long moment. "No," she said softly. "You did that yourself. I just stopped you from ruining someone else's." For a moment, Blair looked like she wanted to argue, but then her shoulders dropped. She sat down on the steps, head in her hands. Reese could have walked away, but she didn't. She sat down beside her. Not close, just near enough. "People will forget the drama," Reese said quietly. "But you'll remember this. What you did, what it cost." Blair didn't reply, but for once there was no hatred in her eyes, just regret. Reese stood after a while, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. "I don't need you to apologize," she said. "Just be better than this." As Reese walked away, Blair called out, voice barely a whisper, "I didn't know who you were." Reese paused, then looked back. "That's the thing," she said. "You never asked." Weeks passed. Ashford Prep changed, and in the kind of way that didn't make headlines, but you could feel it in the hallways. The laughter got quieter, the stares softer, and people started picking up their phones a little slower before posting something cruel. Reese had become a ghost again, but this time, not out of fear, out of choice. She didn't want fame or pity. She wanted peace. At lunch, she sat by the window, sketching in her notebook. The sun poured in like melted gold. Across the courtyard, Rachel sat under a tree, earbuds in, pretending not to look her way. Brooke was gone, Blair was gone, and the silence they left behind felt like a strange kind of freedom. One day, Ms. Ortiz stopped her in the hallway. "You did something brave," she said. "Not many your age can face what you did." Reese smiled faintly. It didn't feel brave. It just felt necessary. That night, she deleted all her saved recordings one by one. Each click felt like closing a wound. When she reached the final file, the one labeled Evidence Final, she hesitated. Then she whispered, "You're not my story anymore," and pressed delete. For the first time since she'd moved to Millbrook, she slept through the night without waking from the old fear, the one that used to whisper, "They're watching you." Now, the only thing watching her was the morning light coming through her window. It was a Saturday when the message came. Reese was cleaning her desk when her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but thank you. Because of you, my daughter finally told me what's been happening at her school." Attached was a photo, a teenage girl, maybe 14, smiling shyly beside her mom. Reese stared at the screen for a long time, her throat tight. She hadn't realized how far her story had traveled. The video Rachel posted, the confrontation, the exposure, it had spread beyond their town, beyond the state. Parents were having conversations. Schools were reviewing policies. Her phone buzzed again. You made her feel less alone. Reese closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek before she even felt it coming. Her mom appeared at the doorway. "Everything okay?" Reese smiled faintly. "Yeah, I think it is." Sarah stepped closer, brushing a thumb under her daughter's eye. "You know, I always hoped you'd become a fighter. I just didn't know it would look like this." Reese laughed softly. I didn't fight, Mom, I just told the truth. Her mom smiled. That's the hardest fight of all. Outside, wind chimes rattled in the soft breeze. Inside, something heavy finally lifted, the sound of a heart unclenching after too long. Spring came quietly that year. The cherry trees bloomed along the sidewalks of Millbrook, pink petals falling like gentle reminders that everything broken can still become beautiful. Reese stood in the courtyard of Ashford Prep, camera in hand. She wasn't filming for proof anymore, she was capturing moments. Smiles, sunlight, birds landing on branches. The school had changed more than she expected. There was a new counselor, new anti-bullying policies and assemblies about kindness that didn't feel forced. People actually talked now, honestly. One afternoon, Rachel approached her. No phone, no followers, just her. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know how to stop it back then. Reese studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled, small but real. You just did. They sat under the cherry tree together, quiet. Rachel looked up at the branches. Do you ever wish it never happened? Reese thought for a moment. Sometimes. But then I remember who I was before all this. Scared, small, invisible. I don't think I could go back to being her. Rachel nodded, eyes glistening. You're different now. Reese looked up at the sky, petals drifting down like snow. I guess sometimes the storm is what makes you real, she said softly. And for the first time, Rachel smiled, not out of guilt but gratitude. Graduation day. The auditorium was packed, sunlight slanting through tall windows, parents waving from the seats. Reese sat among rows of caps and gowns, her fingers tracing the edge of her speech card. When her name was called, she walked up to the podium. 1,000 eyes on her, the girl who'd once been the new kid, the liar, the victim. She took a breath. The mic caught the small tremor in her voice. When I first came here, I thought being quiet meant being safe, that if I kept my head down, no one could hurt me. But silence doesn't protect you, it just protects them. The room was utterly still. I learned that truth can be dangerous, but I also learned it's the only thing that frees you. So to anyone out there who's scared, I see you. Speak anyway, because you're stronger than you think. A tear rolled down Sarah Morgan's cheek in the front row. Reese smiled, a quiet kind of smile, not pride, not revenge, just peace. When the applause started, it wasn't thunderous, it was gentle, like the sound of healing. And as Reese stepped off the stage, the sunlight hit her face just right, as if the universe itself was saying, you made it. A month after graduation, Reese received a letter. No sender name, no return address, just her name written in neat handwriting. Inside, a folded note. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know, I was lost back then. I was angry at the world, at myself. I hurt people who didn't deserve it. You taught me something I never learned in all my years of pretending to be strong, that courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it just whispers, not this time. Wherever you go next, I hope you find peace. You earned it. Blair Pierce Reese read the letter 3 times. She didn't cry this time. She just sat quietly by her window, watching the light move across the floor. Blair Pierce, the name that once made her stomach twist, was now just a memory written in ink. And maybe, Reese thought, that was the point. Not to erase the pain, but to grow beyond it. August sunlight shimmered off the car windshield as Reese loaded her last box into the trunk. Her mom leaned against the car, trying to hide her tears. College feels big, huh? She said softly. Reese smiled. Yeah, but I think I'm ready for big now. They hugged for a long time, the kind of hug that says, thank you for surviving with me. As the car pulled onto the highway, Reese opened her journal, the one she'd started after the storm. Between old sketches and messy notes were words she'd written one night months ago. One day I'll look back and realize the pain didn't break me. It built me. She smiled faintly. Outside the window, the world opened up. Endless roads, nameless towns, places she'd never seen but somehow already belonged to. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel watched. She just felt free. A soft breeze carried laughter through the small park near her college campus. Reese sat on a bench, camera on her lap. Her short film, The Quiet Ones, had just won a student award. It wasn't about her, not directly, but every frame was a reflection of the truth she'd lived. In the final scene of the film, a girl stands under falling petals, whispering, "I forgive you." People in the audience cried. Some stood to clap. Reese didn't need the applause, she needed the understanding. And that, she finally got. Her phone buzzed with a message from Rachel. "Saw your film. Proud of you, Reese." She smiled, typed back, "Thank you for seeing me." Then she lifted her camera, pointed it toward the sunset, and pressed record. They said silence keeps you safe, but I learned silence only keeps you small. So I spoke, and even when my voice shook, I spoke again. Sometimes healing isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just waking up, breathing, and choosing to try again. If you're out there, hurting, hiding, waiting for someone to understand, this is me telling you I do. You're not alone. You never were. If you liked the video, subscribe the channel for more videos like this.